6ix9ine officially pronounced dead after being released.
How many times? You had 3 this year.
But also you're on probation, so you gotta move a little different though.
Yeah, shout out to my probation officer.
Now is it
Tekashi 6ix9ine's rise to fame was one of the quickest, most violent, and most disastrous career starts we ever witnessed. In his quest for glory, the young Brooklyn rapper decided to associate himself with a real gang in order to boost his image. Plenty of artists before Tekashi have assumed a gangster persona in the studio to sell records, yet no one has gone to the lengths 6ix9ine did for the sake of his career. Using what he called a guaranteed formula for success, Tekashi reached out to Blood Gang members and ultimately joined them in order to use their image as well as receive protection. However, no one could have foreseen just how dangerous that move would prove to be for the young star. After cooperating with federal authorities and providing testimony against his gang, the 9 Trey Gangster Bloods have been looking for revenge. Thanks for joining us on Lime Report, everyone. Today, we'll be taking a closer look at Tekashi's release from prison and the tragic fate that befell him. Before we continue, remember to like, subscribe, and check out the link in our description for a chance to win our $100 Amazon gift card giveaway. Don't go anywhere as we uncover the truth behind Tekashi's death. You won't want to miss this. Tekashi 6ix9ine, born Daniel Hernandez, was born and raised in Bushwick, Brooklyn. The young rapper experienced plenty of hardships growing up. His father was kicked out when he was just in the 3rd grade, and his stepfather was shot near their home when he was just 13. Suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder and depression after the events, Hernandez began to act out in school. His troubles eventually led to him to drop out of school, and he turned to drugs to supply income for his family. His first arrest and stint in prison is when he initially encountered members of the Trey 9 Bloods. Enchanted by their personas, Tekashi decided to mimic their style and pay homage to the gang as he released music. During the production of his hit single, Gummo's music video, Tekashi reached out to Kifano Shawty Jordan, his now ex-manager, and requested Blood members as extras for the video. Soon after, the two became close and Tekashi was eventually allowed to join the 9 Trey Bloods, and in exchange for their image, Tekashi provided funds to fuel the gang's criminal operations. During his time as a Blood, Tekashi ran wild and was involved in multiple shootings, robberies, acts of gang violence, and even conspiracy to commit murder according to court documents. As a member of the gang and with his fame rapidly rising, Tekashi felt like he was invincible, but the path he had taken would prove to be too much for the young rapper. Tekashi made an unthinkable move when he joined the gang simply to boost his public image. When the rapper joined the already violent and unstable gang, he was immediately thrown in the middle of the toxic power dynamic that existed among members. Internal threats, disputes, and even attacks were common among the members of the 9 Trey. Cracks in the group only grew due to money Tekashi injected into the gang and the controversies he carried with him. Less than a year after he joined, Tekashi renounced the gang in 2018 in an effort to distance himself from the growing threat to his life. When Tekashi was kidnapped by 2 members of the gang, beaten and robbed at gunpoint for over $750,000 worth of jewelry, the rapper had enough of his so-called brethren. When he, along with other 9 Trey members, were arrested, 6ix9ine decided to flip and cooperate with authorities in order to reduce his lengthy sentence. With his betrayal clear, Tekashi became a marked man after his testimony against the 9 Trey Bloods. Though he hoped for his help to allow him to walk free, the court gave the rapper 2 years, and with time served, he was slated to be released in the fall of this year. With a target on his head, Tekashi was fearful of a looming retaliation against him in prison. With his life in danger, the court addressed his situation and transferred the young rapper to a private prison in Queens, determined for the star to serve out his time. However, another threat posed a greater risk to his life that moved the courts in Tekashi's favor. The highly contagious COVID-19 has been ravaging the New York prison system, and with Tekashi's asthma, he was considered a high-risk individual. In light of the circumstances, the court granted the Brooklyn rapper compassionate release and ordered his remaining 4 months to be served in home confinement. While the news brought great relief to both Tekashi and his lawyer, did the news really lean in the rapper's favor? He may have escaped the threats of the virus in prison, yet his actions in court were seen as the highest form of betrayal. Stay tuned as we follow Tekashi's release from prison and the chilling truth that lies ahead. You won't want to miss this. Tekashi knew that going against the Bloods meant both he and his family were in danger for the rest of their lives. Despite the threats, 6ix9ine decided to move forward and help to bring multiple members of the notorious gang down. Valuing his help, the US government extended every hand they could to assist Tekashi after the trial, including offering him witness protection, a move that he initially declined. But as the threat on his life grew, Tekashi decided it was time to take the necessary steps to protect himself and his family. With the health crisis spreading, all parties agreed it was for the best for Tekashi to make his way to home confinement and remain quarantined until the threat of the virus passed. Was that the best course of action? Tekashi was a public figure, so word of his release would spread immediately, and some feared an attack on the transport. That in mind, the judge ordered that Tekashi's release documents could not be filed until the following day after Tekashi was confirmed to have been safely transported. It's possible that Tekashi will be safer in his new situation due to the instability the prisons were facing. Yet, now that he's out of prison, Tekashi is more vulnerable than ever. His future more uncertain than ever. Did Tekashi make the right move? Find out what became of Tekashi next. The decision to grant 6ix9ine early release from prison was based on the grounds that his pre-existing respiratory condition put him at greater risk of complications or even death if he contracted the virus. Leveraging his thorough cooperation in the case against the Bloods as well as the circumstances, Tekashi was allowed to serve the rest of his time at home. And while this was a cause for celebration, Tekashi also knew that moving was just as dangerous as staying in prison. That in mind, the rapper decided to accept his previously denied witness protection. With the deal in place, US Marshals will now be in charge of Tekashi's safety. Court filings have also indicated that Tekashi will be living with his mother during the confinement. Ordinarily, the circumstances would lead most to believe Tekashi was finally safe now that he was out of jail and under protection. That couldn't be further from the truth. Although it's true that Tekashi has escaped the lurking gang members in prison, the real world can be a much more dangerous place. In prison, there's a certain order to things. The real world, however, is far more cruel and unexpected. With his name forever marked, Tekashi must live the rest of his days always looking over his shoulder and running from those after him. His escape from the increasingly dangerous gang life proved to be a smart move at the time, but he must move more carefully than ever now. As we saw with the tragic murder of Pop Smoke, one false move could spell the end for Tekashi. After his confessions, some former friends and collaborators turned their back on the dummy boy rapper. When Tekashi made his decision to work with law enforcement, he broke a sacred rule of the streets: never snitch. With his betrayal, many lost respect for him and now refuse to work with the rapper such as Lil Baby, Trippie Redd, and Gunna, among others. His career and image as a hardened criminal both ruined. It's as if Tekashi's actions spelled the death of his career. Originally, after sentencing, Tekashi refused witness protection, claiming that he planned to continue his musical career in spite of the present risk to his life. The rapper signed a record deal while still incarcerated for a reported $10 million and seemed driven to fulfill his contractual obligation. Since his stepfather's death and Tekashi's rise to fame, he has become the sole provider for his family. Bearing the financial burden, Tekashi's only way to make enough money to support his loved ones is through his music and touring. At first, he was adamant about returning to his previous way of life, but after considering the gravity of his situation, Tekashi decided to accept help and protection under the US government. The challenge with helping Tekashi lies in his easily recognizable appearance. His now grown-out rainbow hair and face tattoos will undoubtedly be hard to hide, meaning the only thing Tekashi can do is move with caution and hope the federal agents can protect him from any potential threats. As his enemies await his true release in 4 months' time, will Tekashi be able to surround himself with enough help to survive? Tekashi's life wasn't always the crazy mess that we see today. Although he didn't have the best childhood, Tekashi and his brother, Oscar, did what they could to help their mother pay rent and the bills. The brothers took on multiple jobs, yet the money was not enough to sustain their lives. Frustrated with their impoverished status, Tekashi took to selling drugs to help supplement the family's income. His love for his family and compassion were what ultimately led him down a dark path with no return. While Tekashi made mistakes that could be considered unforgivable, he has done well to make amends with society so far as he continues down his uncertain path. During his trial, his mother wrote the judge in a letter that spoke to Tekashi's character, stating that his public image wasn't a true reflection of the heart he has always held. "Danny knows what it's like to want to help but not to have the means to do it," she said. "He has vowed a life of humility and big-heartedness, despite his fame." Throughout his trial, Tekashi made it known that he did not consider himself a victim and accepted all punishment that came his way. The type of growth that he demonstrated, as well as his full cooperation, saved the young star from having to face multiple decades in prison. Despite his escape from behind bars, Tekashi must now live in fear as he hides from a violent gang of blood members hunting him down. While we don't know what will become of the former NY King, we can only hope federal agents will be able to keep the high-risk Tekashi out of harm's way. What do you think will become of 6ix9ine? Will he be able to find a solution that doesn't end in his early grave? Or will bloodthirsty Nine Trace finally reap their vengeance on the traitorous Tekashi? Thanks for joining us on Lime Report. Make sure to let us know what you think in the comment section below. And before you go, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to us, and check out the link in our description for a chance to win our $100 Amazon gift card giveaway.